evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 25th Eugene City Council meeting. We have kind of a short agenda this evening. We've already done our consent calendar, and the one action item has been pulled. So what we have remaining is a public forum, and we have 5 people signed up for that. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council, and we welcome that, on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward, if you know it. The timer and lights indicate the time you have to speak. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. And so the first person up is Reverend William Wingate, followed by Duncan Rhodes.
Hello, my name is Reverend Will.I.am Wingate, and I live in Glenwood. I'm here to speak to the discrimination that goes on in this country regarding medical marijuana and spiritual marijuana. I have a church. I'm not allowed to use my sacrament because it's illegal. In this state, it's legal medically, but it's never been broached as far as spiritually. Even though it's accepted medically, it's really interesting that you have to work really hard to get a doctor, and right now I have 2 friends who are dying. Well, actually, one of them's already dead. So that's how quick that happens. For me, I've seen medical marijuana save lives. We have films from people in Canada where at least 34 people have had their lives while they had cancer changed, totally brought back from the brink of death. And yet, this country has a belief that marijuana is something that causes harm. I'd like to ask any of you, have you ever seen a person who died strictly from smoking marijuana? Because I haven't. I don't know anybody, federal government or otherwise, ever has. So I'd like to know why it's deemed so disastrous when you have cigarettes on each and every corner. You have signs up that people can't do illegal things on the corners, but they can stand there and kill themselves and others with these cigarettes every day. The discrimination I'm talking about is the fact that I am not supposed to drive, and yet I take care of many people. I have a license. I have people who pay for my insurance and stuff because they want me on the road because I'm a very safe driver. And I take care of a lot of service people, getting them to and from the hospital, getting things to and from them that they need. If I smoked the first day of the month, I could be pulled over any of 30 days afterwards, and if I didn't smoke anything for those 30 days, I would still be seen as somebody who could be under a DUI. I think that's insane. I am not supposed to take my medicine at any public event or anywhere that I go, yet people can drink and once again smoke, which are both hazardous things and have been deemed so by society. The last thing is working. You know, I know people that businesses would not be in effect, nor would they have survived if they didn't have people who smoked there working in their premise. And they have done great jobs. They've done wonderful jobs. I worked for the University of Oregon for a long time. The people there knew that I smoked. The people in the company that I worked for knew that I smoked. But I did such a good job that until I stood up to Dave Frohmeyer and asked him why he didn't accept the fact that I had asked him and Barbara Roberts in 1991 if they would accept $100 off of every ounce that was grown in this state in order to keep the state solvent. They said no. You see where the state is.
Thank you. Duncan Rhodes is next, followed by Bob Mataroni.
This will be short. You guys will get to go home early tonight. I'm Duncan Rhodes. I live in the Whitaker neighborhood, and I'm one of Andrea's constituents. Last Wednesday, the Whitaker Community Council Board voted to strongly oppose the proposed closure of the north and south entrances of the fairgrounds and the removal of the right-of-way. The bike and pedestrian paths through the fairgrounds are an important connection between the College Hill and Friendly Street and the Jefferson West Side Whitaker neighborhoods. This proposed policy change is being enacted without public outreach and without getting the opinions of those affected by the closures. and I'll present a letter to that effect. And I've also emailed Andrea, Kitty, Lane County Commissioners, and Neighborhood Leadership Council, and the NLC Committee on Sustainability. This policy appears to be in direct conflict with Eugene's triple bottom line and with the goals of the 20-Minute Neighborhood Initiative, Envision Eugene, and most of the other city initiatives that I know of, and a decided step backwards in preparing for the future. The action reduces the connectivity of the bicycle and pedestrian paths, and it reduces the eyes on the street in the fairgrounds area. And eyes on the street are the best way to reduce crime and vandalism. The more traffic in the area, the better. If there's a problem with criminal activity, the appropriate response would be increasing the police patrols and possibly improving the lighting. Several women I know have expressed safety concerns about the proposed closure, since this would force them to traverse areas they perceive as more dangerous. We ask the City Council to oppose the closure of the north and south entrances of the fairgrounds and the removal of that right-of-way. There will be a fairgrounds right-of-way hearing at the Lane County Courthouse, 125 East 8th Avenue, on Wednesday, August 17th at 1:30 p.m. We encourage everybody to attend and make their opinions known.
Thank you. Bob Maccheroni is next, followed by Michael Lambros.
Hi, I'm Bob Maccheroni. I live at 1994 Brewer. Mike Clark is my counselor, and Andrea Ortiz is my councilwoman for where my business is located. I'm here tonight for a single reason, and I'd like to talk about free speech. And the city has chosen to send me notices that my sign in front of my building that says no MX violates the city sign code. And in the past, I've been here and I've stated openly that I believe the city sign code is in place to regulate signs for commerce, and that you can't regulate signs that are just free speech. And so it's on private property. It does not pose a public hazard in any way. And so the city still seems to be pursuing that. I got a call from the planning and development director today to tell me that a letter with the fine enclosed was coming. People in this room already know that because somebody here asked for an opinion from the city attorney on the issue. I think the council should do something about the sign code and make it a little clearer, and perhaps remove the anonymous complainant portion of it. I don't think that's fair to very many people in the city. I obviously have a reason for having that sign. I'd like to read you a quote that's at the Morse Free Speech Plaza down here, and it says, "The will of the people is the only legitimate foundation of any government, and to protect its expression should be our first object." And that was said by Thomas Jefferson 200 years ago. It still applies today. It seems like my free expression can't be heard in this city. And I thought this is a very liberal city where we're supposed to be diverse and listen to everybody. The other thing that is printed over there in that same plaza is part of the Oregon Constitutional Bill of Rights. No law shall be passed restraining the free expression of opinion or restricting the right to speak, write, or print freely on any subject whatsoever. And so I think the city attorney needs to revisit some of those things. I will vigorously defend my right to free speech, and I would hope that some of you would stand up and join me with that principle. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Lambros is next, followed by Nathan Fendrick.
Hello. Michael Lambros. I live in River Road, so I guess Ward 7 kind of, and Lane County, the rest of it. I have a business here in town. I have my family here in town. I own property here in town. And since I moved here, I've been noticing, especially very recently, what are termed chemtrails, and it's more of a question or just ask if anybody is noticing yourselves or just look up on a day-to-day basis. They're airplanes spraying white lines. They look like clouds and long white straps going from horizon to horizon across the sky over the cities all last week, the week before that as well, and I've been watching more and more. and they're in a grid formation on the way driving to Portland, the same thing doing it over the cities. I contacted El Rapa, spoke to Sally Marcos, and she told me that she's aware of them. She can't speak on them because they don't regulate that level of the airspace. So FAA is who you called. I contacted FAA at the Eugene Airport, and the lady at the tower said, I acknowledge them, but I can't comment, nor do I have an opinion. Call the Standards Division up in Portland. I've been calling them, leaving numerous messages. Nobody's responding. There is a documentary, investigative reporting on YouTube called What in the World Are They Spraying? And it's a gentleman down in California that did a lot of research. Looks very good. USDA is finding exceptionally high amounts of aluminum and barium in topsoils in the watershed, and I went to the USDA to see if they're finding anything in their samples here in the valley. They said they don't test for aluminum or metals like that, but they'd be interested to look into it. Department of Environmental Quality is also looking into it. They were interested to hear about it, but they didn't have much to say. I'm at a loss for information. I don't know if we should be concerned, but I'm not getting any answers as to who's spraying it, why it's being sprayed, and what it is they're spraying. So kind of leave it at that. And all I can say is just look up in the skies, and if you see clouds that are in white straight lines across the sky, either in a grid formation or parallel to each other, they're not natural clouds, and it's not airplanes, or it's not contrails, which is the exhaust from commercial airlines. It is something that it's sprayed in a tight white line, and then over time it dissipates into a wispy cloud, and then next thing you know, you have the regular cloud cover in the middle of July. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last stop is Nathan Fendrich.
The shorter one. Nathan Fendrick, Eugene, Oregon. I was asked last week, about 2 weeks ago, last meeting, why I didn't speak out about the flag salute. And I told the people that asked me, I was with two people, and I told them that frankly, I didn't really personally care one way or the other. If you did it, fine, great, I'll say it. If you don't do it, that's fine too. I didn't care. But since things have happened, 2 weeks ago, Monday as a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, my mother-in-law, 101 years old, that had escaped Nazi Germany after several incidents in 1936, December 1936, and they took everything they had. They arrived virtually with nothing. And she escaped to this country with her husband. They worked and worked and worked. She knew the value of freedom. She knew the value of free speech. She was very patriotic in a quiet way. Well, she died, and we buried her last Monday. What I didn't know at the time, and this affected me, I knew her for 36 years, so I knew her pretty well, and she was very patriotic. Well, what I didn't know was that there had been an interview that had been lost. She's dead and buried now. And this was found just 3-4 days ago. And in this interview, took place 6-7 years ago, and it had been lost. They asked about when she dies, where she wants to be buried, how she wants to be buried, and she said, I want to be buried holding the American flag. And I decided that what better place for the Pledge of Allegiance at every meeting than a forum for free speech. Here, Norman Rockwell painted this. He painted this, I think it was 1943. You can go look at it. Just look, Norman Rockwell, freedom of speech. He actually painted this at all public meetings. The flag salute should be given. I could go on. There's no way in 3 minutes I can tell you what I'm thinking. It would take me 20, 30 minutes. And so hit the buzzer when I finish. But at any rate, we are basically, we're immigrants. Everybody here is an immigrant or a descendant of an immigrant, unless you're 100% Native American. You're an immigrant. What would your fathers and mothers... Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public forum and thank all of you who came and shared with us your points of view. We appreciate you coming. I'm going to call on Councilor Ortiz.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank everybody for coming down to this lovely... Maybe I should take my mute button off. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everybody for coming down on this lovely evening. I appreciate public comment. I guess I had something to say. Oh, Lane County. I would. Is there any way for us to weigh in on that decision, Mayor or City Manager? I do think that, you know, with the it being a conduit for the city north and south, it really does impact our community. So I don't know how this body feels. I wouldn't want to put a motion on the table right now because I don't believe in doing that, but I really feel pretty strongly about that, you know, that they're going to be cutting off access for people to go through on their bikes. I don't know. I'd like to hear what my peers say. And I appreciate the gentleman coming and speaking about the flag. Actually, I watched an HBO special this week. I don't know if any of you all have HBO, but it actually is 50 states, 50 citizens, and interviews people who are taking their naturalization test. And it's very passionate. It's very, you know, I cried, you know, several different times because people really shared their experiences of what they did to have to come here and to be a part of this country. So I really do believe it. So, thank you.
So, was there anybody else who was in the? It's not popping up in the. It's coming under next to Councilor Ortiz's name and not yours. That's the problem. But anyway, I've got you. So, Clark. Okay, Councilor Clark.
Thank you very much, Mayor. With regard to what Bob brought up, I heard him say that there was a question asked. I hadn't seen it in memo form. If it has been already done, I'll go look for that. But I would be very interested in understanding the way our sign code differentiates between commercial and as Bob deemed it, political speech in this particular case. If there's some specifics on how we differentiate that, I'd like to understand it a little bit better. And I also have to say that in line with the constitutional idea of having the right to face your accuser, the fact that we take anonymous complaints bothers me a little bit too. I know that that's probably intended to protect people from potential for retribution or things like that, but I have a little bit of a problem with it. So I'd appreciate either from Glenn or from City Manager further information on that, please.
And we'll get you information back on both of those.
Councilor Taylor.
I also wanted to ask about the sign code and why this sign is illegal and why we're enforcing it.
We'll provide some information back on that.
Thank you.
Okay, and Nathan, I had the opportunity to meet your mother-in-law, and I'm sorry about her passing, but she certainly lived to a ripe age. I'm just saying that I remember meeting your mother-in-law. Yes. Yeah. And I did. Yeah. All right. With that, I think we're through of the business of the day. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
One more thing.
Sorry.
Too late.